Cincinnati tenant pled guilty to making false statements to law enforcement officers when she showed those officers texts supposedly from her landlord that were racially negative. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting update to an article that I covered a while back, and it's about this tenant in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. Now, this tenant, right, basically was trying to get revenge on her landlord for perceived injustices, right? And she did this by lying about the landlord, saying that the landlord was a racist, making up fake text messages that her landlord supposedly sent to her by spoofing these text messages and spoofing the landlord's phone number, right? And tried to get this landlord in some real trouble for violating the Housing Act. But guess what? You know what? All it took was a little bit of work on the by the fair housing people, right, to determine that, hey, this tenant was a scumbag. She just, complete garbage. She made all this stuff up. She's a liar. And guess what? She just pled guilty. She got convicted of this crime, and now she's facing 5 years in prison. Now, I don't think she's actually going to get 5 years. I don't, okay? I work in law enforcement. I see how this sort of thing goes. She's probably going to get probation. Let's be honest here. But this is a felony conviction. And that alone is going to hurt her in a lot of different ways. So I'm satisfied with that. I don't like people who, they lie about this sort of thing, because if there really is a person who is facing, racial issues, well, they're not going to be believed. They're not going to be believed because of liars like this person right here. So, yeah, I'm glad that she got caught red-handed, basically. I'm glad that the landlord's name has been cleared, and, hopefully, maybe she will get some prison time, okay? Because she deserves it, that's for sure. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think. So, have you ever had a tenant tell any sort of lies about you as a landlord? I know that every time I read a newspaper article and it is them interviewing the tenant and then there's no word whatsoever about the landlord, I suspect that there's a few lies being told. Lies being told to garner sympathy and hopefully, screw a landlord over, right? And I have to use my own judgment in order to fill in the missing parts of the story, because a lot of the stories, they don't make sense. Oh, the poor tenant, for some reason, the landlord wanted to evict them and they were doing everything right. And I was like, no landlord in their right mind evicts people when the tenant is doing everything right. Okay? There has to be something that's missing. And in a lot of cases, you just don't hear our side of the story. That's why I go through these articles in the first place. I want people to know what, somebody like what I as a landlord would be thinking if I was placed into this sort of situation, or why I would have done things in a certain manner. It's not because I'm cold and heartless, which, maybe I am, but it is because, I'm trying to operate my business in the most profitable way I can and suffer as few losses as I can. And so I have to do it this way. Okay. And that's the same thing for most landlords. So anyway, let's get into this article and see what it says. This article is coming from Dayton247now.com, and it says, woman admits to making up racial texts from landlords and lying to federal agents. Like I said, I have covered this article before, but this is a nice little update to it so that, just to let you know exactly what's going to happen to this lady. Let's get into it. A local woman admitted that she lied to federal agents in her claims against her landlord. Dermisha Pickett pleaded guilty in federal court to making false statements after accusing her landlord of violating the Fair Housing Act. She admits she fabricated messages that stated the landlord didn't want black tenants. Phone records and forensic analysis indicate that no text messages were exchanged during the time periods Pickett claimed. Pickett apparently used cell phone apps to create the text messages. An investigation revealed the landlord owns more than 100 properties with mostly black tenants. Yeah, and see, this goes 100% against what she was saying, right? It makes no sense whatsoever that a landlord with mostly black tenants, for some reason, I just, didn't want to rent to you because you're black. Well, most of my tenants are black. And so that doesn't make any sense. I mean, I'm sure in her mind she was like, well, this guy's just a racist. He's just a racist. But you know what? I don't like people who they sit here and they use that as an excuse to try to cover up their own bad behavior. If I remember the original story correctly, right, she brought all this up when she was facing eviction for non-payment of rent. Okay? Now, maybe they say a little bit more in the details here going down. I'd have to pull up the original article. I haven't read it in a while. The landlord told authorities he didn't want to rent to Pickett because she had caused extensive property damage. Making false reports of racial discrimination is unacceptable and can have tangible effects on other tenants who rely on HUD-assisted housing, said Special Agent in Charge Sean Rice with the HUD Office of Inspector General in a news release. In this case, if the landlord had violated the Fair Housing Act, his participation in HUD's Housing Choice Voucher program may have been revoked, causing the displacement of approximately 50 families who rely on the Housing Choice Voucher program. These families would have been forced to uproot their families to find new homes, incurring non-reimbursable expenses. Okay, so I was wrong about the non-payment of rent thing. So basically, he didn't want to rent to this lady because she has a history of tearing up rental properties, okay? This is a big problem with Section 8 tenants. So this guy is a Section 8 landlord with over 100 properties. Most of his tenants are black, and she thinks that, oh, well, the only reason you didn't want to rent to me is because I'm black. So she makes up some BS story, some BS text messages that are 100% false. And guess what? HUD actually checked it out. They checked it out. They did their job. They did a good job. I'm a federal agent myself, so it's good to hear that other federal agents are out there doing the kind of work that they should be doing in these sort of investigations. And they found that this lady was a liar. And, it'll be on record forever that she's a liar. So like I said, I don't think she's going to get any prison time for this. She'll probably face some sort of probation. But, I do like the fact that, that conviction is on her record. Pickett could face up to 5 years in prison when she's sentenced. Yeah, and she probably won't get 5 years. So anyway, let me know what you think of this whole situation down in the comments section below. And, this is an interesting case.